After the Maccabees took power back, obviously by the mercy of Yahweh, when they took power from Antiochus Epiphanes, they, well, from what he had done, I repeat, by making the temple impure, making sacrifices of pigs for Zeus, Satan. Um, Also, it is part of the Greek religion that comes a lot of what nowadays is Christmas. So a lot of those things they started to make the whole world follow them and started making the Israelim do it. But other than that, I repeat, prohibit them from following the Torah, circumcising their children, keeping the Shabbat, and pronouncing the name of the Father. Even when they would make contracts and stuff like that, they could not write the name. After the Maccabees were able to take control back of the temple and dedicated it, making the feast of Hanukkah, the priests of the moment, basically like Pharisees, the scribes of the moment, decided, because as it is written, they made commandments of men, they decided that they should keep that prohibition that Antiochus have done. So they wanted to keep doing keeping the Shabbat as they think they should keep it. They kept circumcising children as they think that it should be done. They kept reading the Torah and interpreting it as they think it should be interpreted. But the fourth prohibition that came from the Greek emperor, they decided to keep, which was not to use the name of the Father Almighty. According to them, it was to avoid falling into sin. So they would think basically like, we don't know what the people will do, and you know how the people are. They may not understand scriptures as we do. They would think, right? So why don't we forbid them to use the name so that they don't break the third commandment, which says not to use the name for falsehood, vanity, or not to turn the name into a falsehood, illusion, which is what they actually ended up doing by taking it from the people. Because the Almighty gave us free will, and the priests were trying to take that free will, not understanding that by taking that free will, they were actually only leaving people with the option of evil, of sinning. Because Yahweh tells us that if we turn to Him and call on His name, He will turn to us. But if we turn to Him and call on Satan's name, what is going to happen? So the priest prohibited the people from calling on the name about 150 years before Yahushua the Messiah came to earth. So what they did is that the scribes, when they would make copies of the Torah, when they would make copies of the Tanakh, the scriptures, what they call the Old Testament, they would add vowel points. That's basically around the time when they started making the vowel points, because in Hebrew, the real Hebrew, there are no vowel points. That was something that was added later and was used to change scripture. One of those changes was the name. Like I said, when they would see the name Yahweh, they would add the vowel points of the title Adonai or the title Elohim, depending where the title, the name Yahweh would appear. So if the scripture would say Yahweh Elohim, they would add the vowels of Adonai. So that means the A, the O, and the A. So the priest would be reading the scripture, and when he would see that, he would understand that he was not supposed to pronounce Yahweh. He was supposed to pronounce Adonai. So even though Yahweh inspired the prophets to write Yahweh Elohim, the priest decided to read Adonai Elohim. So they started to change scripture, which is what the Almighty tells us not to do, and that if you take words out of the scripture, your name will be taken out of the book of life. So they themselves took the name of the Father, Creator, who wrote the scripture out of his book. The priests and scribes took out the name of the author from the book that he wrote.